In the sprawling, restless city of Boston lived a young woman named Lena Santos. To the wealthy family she served and the hurried crowd she navigated through Back Bay's historic streets, she was nearly invisible, just another nanny in a sea of caregivers, her existence measured in the hours she poured into children who would never remember her name. She walked through Newbury Street carrying Emma's ballet bag, her shoulders curved inward as if to take up less space. The mothers at Emma's private school didn't make eye contact. They saw the worn fabric of her coat, the unraveling hem of her dress, and their eyes slid past her like water off glass. She waited in the service entrance while others used the front doors, her hands folded, her voice never raised above a whisper. The converted closet in Cordelia Blackwood's brownstone measured 6 feet by 8 feet. A twin mattress. A wooden shelf holding 3 changes of clothes. A bare bulb hanging from the ceiling that flickered when the radiator kicked on. This was home. This was where Lena slept after rising at 5 in the morning to dress Emma for school, after 14-hour days under the watch of Cordelia Blackwood, the owner who monitored her every movement, withheld promised wages, and reminded her constantly that no one would hire someone with her background. The scars on her back carried the invisible map of 8 years with Derek Collins, the restaurant manager who employed her before this. His hands that left marks she covered with long sleeves. His threats that kept her silent even as he stole the tips meant to fund her escape. She had saved $40 one month. Just $40. He found it in her locker and spent it on wine. Lena checked the amount again. $200 in cash, hidden in a rolled sock pushed into the corner of her shelf. That was everything. $200 to keep Emma alive for the next 8 days until the next promised payment that would never come. Her stomach was hollow. She had eaten the bread heels from the kitchen garbage 3 hours ago. Emma's lunch was a single sandwich and an apple she had saved from yesterday. There was something else in the sock. Something older. A letter, its edges soft from handling, the paper nearly transparent from being unfolded and refolded 10,000 times. The acceptance letter. Harvard University. Graduate program in social work. Dated 8 years ago. Before Derek. Before the closet. Before everything broke. The name at the top was Lena Maria Santos. The date was September 15th. 8 years. She had been 23 years old when she received it. 23 and standing in a kitchen with Derek's hand around her throat, his other hand crushing the letter into a ball. "You think you're too good for me now?" His voice like venom. "You think you're leaving me?" She had not known that refusing to go to Harvard would be the easier choice, compared to what came after. The clock on Cordelia's kitchen wall read 2:16 a.m. when Lena woke to footsteps in the hallway. Heavy footsteps. Cordelia's footsteps. Then something else. The sound of the front door slamming. Cordelia's car engine starting in the darkness outside. Lena stood and pressed her ear against the closet door. Silence. She opened it carefully and moved through the brownstone, her bare feet making no sound on the cold hardwood. Emma's room was on the 2nd floor. The small bed was empty. The covers had been thrown back. The window was cracked open, winter air flooding in like a curse that could not be erased. Her heartbeat became a hammer in her chest. She called Emma's name. Whispered it first, then louder. No answer came back. She ran to the window and looked down at the street below. The wrought-iron gates of the public garden were visible from here, 3 blocks away, their edges sharp against the winter darkness. The front door lock was still engaged when Lena tried to open it. She turned the deadbolt with shaking hands and stepped into the freezing Boston night without her coat. The streets were empty. The wind carried the smell of salt and frozen rain. Her breath came in visible clouds as she ran toward the public garden, her thin dress offering no protection, her bare arms already going numb. The gate was tall. Elaborate. The iron cold enough to burn. She saw Emma then. A small figure in pale pajamas, standing motionless on the other side of the gate. Her lips were the color of a bruise. Her skin was the color of porcelain. She was not moving. She was not crying. Emma. Lena's voice broke. "Baby, why did you leave the house?" Emma's teeth were chattering too badly to speak. She pointed backward, into the depths of the public garden. "Mommy left again." "You were sleeping." "I went to find you another mommy because you are always sad." Lena lifted her daughter through the gate. Emma weighed almost nothing. The child's body was already trembling like a candle in the wind. Her small fingers gripped Lena's neck so hard they cut off her breath. But Lena did not let go. She turned and ran through the empty streets, searching for anywhere warm, anywhere open, anywhere that might break this night into something survivable. The clock on a bank building read 3:14 a.m. Then she saw it. A restaurant with candlelight glowing in the windows. The sign above the door read Moretti's. The interior was dim and warm. She could see the glow of a fireplace, the flicker of candles on white tablecloths. The restaurant was supposed to be closed at this hour. But there was light. There was warmth. There was a chance. She pushed through the door. The warmth hit her like a physical thing. The smell of garlic and rosemary and expensive wine filled her lungs. She stood there in the doorway with Emma's frozen body against her chest, her own body shaking so badly she could barely stand, and she did not move. 30 feet away, at a corner table where candles burned in low glass holders, a man sat alone. He was tall, broad-shouldered. He wore a black suit that cost more than everything Lena had ever owned, tailored so precisely that every seam aligned with the geometry of his body. His white shirt was open at the collar, revealing the dark hair on his chest. His dark eyes were fixed on the wine glass in his hand. His name was Dante Moretti. He sat at this corner table every night at exactly 3 a.m. Had done so for 20 years. Ever since the night his daughter was stillborn. Ever since the silence began. He did not look up when Lena entered. He simply sat there, alone, nursing his wine in the candlelit darkness that he maintained every single night, ever since loss had taught him that the world could take everything. But then Emma made a sound. A small, shattered sound. The sound of a child whose body was failing. Dante's hand stopped moving. The wine glass paused halfway to his mouth. His eyes lifted slowly from the table. He saw a terrified woman cradling a child. He saw the way she shielded the girl with her own body. He saw the blue lips. The frost in the child's hair. The way the woman was bleeding from her palms where she had gripped the frozen gate to lift Emma over it. And something in him fractured. The part he thought was sealed forever. He set down the wine glass and stood. What happened next was something no one could explain. What changed everything was a single moment when the most dangerous man in Boston looked at a woman he had never seen before, and saw not a stranger, but the reason he had been waiting 20 years to live again. Lena did not know who he was. She only knew that he was moving toward her. She only knew that his hands were gentle when he took Emma from her arms. She only knew that he was carrying the child toward the fireplace, toward warmth, toward life. She didn't know that this frozen night at 3:14 a.m. would be the last night she remained invisible. She didn't know that in this restaurant, in this moment, her fate was already binding to his in ways neither of them could escape. But what she did not know was this: walking through his door would mean that everything Cordelia Blackwood had taken from her was about to be returned. And everything Derek Collins had stolen was about to be paid back with interest. All she knew now was that Emma was safe. All she knew was warmth. All she knew was that a man whose name she did not yet know was wrapping the child in an expensive cashmere coat and carrying her toward the fire. Before we continue, drop a like if this story hits you. Share it with someone who needs to hear it and subscribe so you don't miss what's coming tomorrow. Now let us go back to the beginning. Let us understand how Lena Santos became invisible. Let us see the years that led to this frozen night. Let us see who she was before this moment changed everything. 8 years earlier, in a restaurant kitchen that smelled like garlic and grease and broken dreams, Derek Collins first taught Lena Santos what it meant to be owned. She was 22 years old then, bright-eyed, her college acceptance letter folded carefully in her locker between her spare apron and a pair of worn shoes. The letter was from Boston University. Full scholarship. Early acceptance. She had worked for 3 years to make her grades flawless, had taken the SAT twice, had written essays at midnight after closing shifts. The letter meant escape. The letter meant her life was about to become something other than this. Derek Collins was the restaurant manager. 38 years old, with the kind of handsome that came with a wedding ring and a wife he never mentioned, with shoulders that filled a shirt and hands that were always warm. He had hired her when she was 19 with nothing but a GED and desperation in her eyes. He had been kind to her in the beginning. He had shown her how to arrange plates, how to smile at customers even when her feet were bleeding, how to make the register balance at the end of the night. Then one afternoon, in the walk-in freezer where nobody could hear anything except the hum of the compressor, he cornered her between the plastic bins of chopped vegetables and the hanging sides of beef. "You're special, Lena," he said. His hand was gentle on her wrist. His voice was friendly, almost fatherly. "I can see it. You have potential. Most girls who come through that door, they're just looking for a paycheck. But you're different." She smiled. She was 19 and grateful and terrified of losing the job that kept her in a shared apartment with 2 roommates and paid for her night classes at the community college. "I want to help you," he said. "Those college expenses, they're going to add up. And your family can't help, right? You're on your own." She nodded. It was true. Her mother had died when she was 16. There was no father. There was only Lena, working, always counting dollars. "You work off the clock for me," he said. "I'll take your tips and keep them safe. Save them for you. By the time you get to that university, you'll have thousands. I'm taking care of you, Lena. You understand that? I'm the only one who gives a damn about you." She understood. She believed him. For 3 months, she worked before her shift started, after they ended. She swept the floor at 6 in the morning when the restaurant was still dark. She prepped stations at midnight when she should have been sleeping. Derek kept her tips in an envelope with her name on it in the office, and she was so grateful she cried the first time she saw how much had accumulated. $200. $300. $400. Then she asked to see it. "It's safer with me," Derek said. His voice was still friendly, but something had shifted underneath it, like a blade wrapped in fabric. "You just spend it. You don't understand money yet. You're a child, Lena. Let me handle this." She didn't argue. She was 19 and had never had anyone take care of anything for her. The first time his hand left a mark, he told her it was an accident. They were in the walk-in freezer again. She had mentioned something about her college applications, about her excitement, about how she was thinking of maybe studying business or engineering. Something to lift her out of this. His hand had tightened on her wrist. Just for a moment. Just enough that her skin bloomed purple beneath his fingers. "I'm sorry," he said immediately. "I'm sorry, baby. You know how stressed I am. Work has been insane. I didn't mean to hurt you." She believed him. She wore long sleeves to cover the bruises. She told her roommate she had fallen. She told herself it was an accident, a moment of weakness, something that would never happen again. But it did happen again. And again. And each time it happened, it was because she had said something he didn't like. Because she had worked too slowly. Because she had smiled at a customer in a way that made him jealous. Because she had mentioned her college applications again. The bruises mapped across her body like a geography of hell. Her wrists. Her shoulders. Once, a handprint on her throat that lasted 2 weeks and that she covered with foundation and scarves. Once, his belt across her back when she tried to leave work early because she was sick, and the welt stayed for a month, red and angry and shaped exactly like the buckle. He never hit her in the face. He was careful about that. He was careful to hit her where clothes would cover it, where no one would see. He was careful to tell her he loved her afterward, to hold her while she cried, to promise it would never happen again. "I'm sorry," he would whisper into her hair. "I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. It's just that I love you so much. When I think about you leaving me, when I think about you going to that university and forgetting about me, it drives me crazy. You can't leave me. I won't survive it." She stayed. She stayed because she had nowhere else to go. She stayed because by then he had told her 1,000 times that no one else would hire someone like her, someone with no family, someone with her background, someone as broken as she was. 1 year into working for Derek, she found her college acceptance letter in her locker, ripped into pieces. She had hidden it from him, but he had found it anyway, had taken it to his office, had torn it methodically into confetti. "You think you're better than this?" he laughed. "Better than me? You think you're going to leave me and go study at some fancy school? You're nothing, Lena. You're nobody. I'm the only one who will ever want you. The only one." She was 23 years old then. She had been working for Derek Collins for 4 years. The tips she had earned had disappeared. The college acceptance had been destroyed. Her dreams had been filed away in a cabinet marked impossible. And then, 3 years ago, Derek had done something that felt almost like a kindness. He had a friend, he told her. A woman named Cordelia Blackwood who lived in a beautiful brownstone in Back Bay and who needed someone to care for her daughter and manage the household. "I'm doing this for you," Derek said. He was packing her things into a garbage bag because she didn't own a suitcase. "Cordelia will pay you well. $500 a week. You'll have your own room. You'll get out of the city, basically. Fresh start. New life." She believed him. She was 25 years old and so tired that standing felt like drowning. She went. Cordelia Blackwood was 56 years old, with hair dyed so blonde it was almost white, with a face that had been pulled tight by surgery, with eyes the color of winter water. The brownstone was exactly as beautiful as Derek had described, all exposed brick and hardwood floors and windows that let in so much light that Lena felt like she was standing inside a photograph. "This is staff quarters," Cordelia said, opening a door that revealed a converted closet. It was perhaps 7 feet by 8 feet. It contained a twin bed, a small dresser, a single bare bulb hanging from the ceiling. "Where's the bathroom?" Lena asked. "In the hallway," Cordelia said. "Shared with Emma. Speaking of which, you'll be watching her. She's 5. Very well behaved, but she needs structure. I travel frequently for business. You'll manage the household, cook the meals, do the laundry, handle school drop-offs and pick-ups. Room and board are your payment. You should be grateful. Most people would not hire someone with your background." The same words. Derek's words coming from Cordelia's mouth. The same calculation, the same dismissal, the same message: "You are nobody. You are lucky I tolerate you." Lena met Emma that afternoon. The child was small, with dark curly hair and eyes that held a loneliness so profound that Lena felt it like a knife through her chest. Emma did not run to Cordelia. Cordelia did not hug her. Instead, Emma stood in the hallway, dressed in an expensive uniform, and looked at Lena with an expression that said she understood, somehow, that they were both trapped in the same cage. "Hi," Lena said gently. "I'm Lena. I'm going to be helping take care of you now." Emma did not speak. She just reached out and took Lena's hand. 3 years passed like that. Lena's alarm went off at 5:44 a.m. every single morning. She would rise in the darkness of her converted closet, would dress quietly, would slip into Emma's room and wake the child with a whisper and a gentle hand on her shoulder. "Come on, sweetie. School day." Emma would wake and reach for her immediately, her small hands gripping Lena's nightshirt. Lena would bathe her, would dress her in her uniform, would braid her dark hair into careful plaits. She would make her breakfast, oatmeal with cinnamon, or toast with jam, or scrambled eggs arranged on the plate in the shape of a smiling face. She would pack her lunchbox with sandwiches cut into triangles, with apple slices arranged in a pattern, with a note written on a napkin: "You are loved. You are special. You are going to do amazing things today. Then she would deliver Emma to the private school 3 blocks away, would return to the brownstone, and would spend the next 12 hours serving Cordelia's needs. The kitchen floors needed mopping. The windows needed cleaning. The laundry needed washing and ironing. Cordelia's wardrobe needed organizing. The meals needed planning and preparing. And always, Cordelia was watching, commenting, correcting. Emma's breakfast was cold this morning. Do better. The sink is not clean enough. Do it again. You're moving too slowly. Are you sick? Are you pregnant? If you're pregnant, you need to tell me now. At 3:06 p.m., Lena would pick up Emma from school. The child would run to her and wrap her arms around Lena's legs, burying her face in her thighs, and for those few seconds, Lena would feel like the most important person in the world. They would go to the park sometimes, sitting on benches while Emma played, while Lena watched her with the kind of intensity that came from loving someone more than your own life. They would go to the library and check out books, and Lena would read to her for hours, doing funny voices for the characters, making Emma laugh until she snorted. At night, before bed, Emma would sit on Lena's lap in the converted closet, the only privacy they had, and would hide things in Lena's pockets. A drawing she had made at school, a leaf she had found that was the colors of autumn. A note written in a child's careful print, "I love you, Lena." And Lena would hold the child and tell her, "I love you too, sweet girl. More than anything. More than my own life." 3 years of this. 3 years of rising at 5 in the morning. 3 years of 14-hour days. 3 years of being told she was lucky to have this job, lucky to have a roof over her head, lucky that anyone had hired her at all. Her $200 remained in a drawer. The $500 weekly wage that Cordelia had promised had never materialized. Room and board was the only payment, Cordelia had decided. And Lena had nowhere else to go. But then came the Tuesday afternoon when Emma came home from school with a fever of 103 degrees. The pediatrician said it was nothing serious. A virus. Fluids and rest and she would be fine in a few days. But then the fever climbed to 104, and then to 105, and Emma stopped eating, stopped laughing, stopped being Emma. She lay in her bed with her eyes closed and her small body shaking, and Lena sat beside her counting the hours like a woman counting down to execution. By Wednesday evening, Emma was worse. By Thursday morning, she was seizing. Lena carried her to the hospital. The diagnosis was meningitis. The treatment was immediate. The surgery was scheduled for Friday at noon. And the cost was $85,000. Lena sat in the hospital waiting room in her worn jeans and her thin jacket, and she asked Cordelia to authorize the surgery. "Absolutely not," Cordelia said. She was standing near the window, silhouetted against the Boston skyline. "Emma is my daughter, and the decision is mine. I will not authorize an experimental procedure that may or may not work. It's too expensive. We'll wait. We'll see if she improves on antibiotics." "She's getting worse," Lena said. "The doctor said without surgery, she could have permanent brain damage. She could die." "That's not my problem," Cordelia said. "And frankly, it's not yours either. You're an employee. You don't get to make medical decisions." "Please," Lena said. "Please. I'll figure out how to pay for it. Just authorize the surgery. Please." Cordelia looked at her then with eyes so cold that Lena felt the temperature in the room drop. "You'll pay for it? How? With what money? You have nothing. You are nothing. You're a girl with no family and no future, working a job I gave you out of charity. The answer is no. And if you continue to question my judgment, I'll find someone else to take care of Emma. You'll be out on the street where you belong." That night, Lena sat in the hospital parking lot and opened her banking app. The $200 that she had been saving for 3 years was still there, sitting in a savings account that barely earned interest. $200. That was all she had in the world. She needed $85,000 in 12 days. She needed a miracle. When Cordelia arrived home to the brownstone at midnight, she found both Lena and Emma gone. She opened the door to the converted closet and saw that Lena's few belongings had been removed. She called Lena's phone, which went straight to voicemail. What Cordelia did not know was that Lena had made a decision in that parking lot. She had looked at her daughter, because Emma was her daughter, in every way that mattered, and she had decided that she would not die invisible. She had taken Emma from the hospital against medical advice. She had carried the feverish child into the freezing Boston night. She had walked for hours, searching for warmth, searching for shelter, searching for something, anything, that might save them both. And at 3:14 a.m. on a night that would change everything, she had walked through the door of an Italian restaurant with a child in her arms and desperation in her eyes. She did not know whose restaurant it was. She did not know that the man sitting at the corner table was the most dangerous person in Boston. She did not know that her life was about to become something entirely unimaginable. All she knew was that Emma was burning with fever. All she knew was that they were running out of time. All she knew was that in a few hours, the morning would come, and she would have to figure out how to save her daughter's life with nothing but $200 and the force of a love that could move mountains. She stepped inside, and the warmth wrapped around her like a blessing. The warmth wrapped around her like a blessing. Lena stood in the doorway of the Italian restaurant, her arms aching from carrying Emma through the frozen streets of Boston, the child's small body burning with fever against her chest. The amber glow of candlelight spilled across white tablecloths, and the scent of aged wine and wood smoke hung in the air like a prayer answered by someone who was still listening. At 3:17 in the morning, the restaurant should have been empty. It wasn't. A man sat at a corner table in the back, a single glass of wine before him, untouched. Dante Moretti. 48 years old but looking carved from something harder than time. Korean features sharp as cut glass, black suit tailored so perfectly it cost more than Lena's entire annual salary, silver threading through his dark hair at the temples. His eyes, storm grey and empty of mercy, lifted from the wine glass and found her in the doorway. Something in those eyes cracked. Just for a moment. Just for an instant that his men, Tony and Theo, would later describe in hushed voices as the moment their world shifted on its axis. He saw a terrified woman in a soaked coat. He saw a child whose lips had turned blue from the cold. He saw the way Lena's trembling hands never loosened their grip, how she shielded Emma's fevered body with her own, offering what little warmth she possessed. And he saw his daughter, who had never drawn a single breath. Dante stood. The movement was controlled, deliberate, but faster than anyone had ever seen him move. His voice cut through the silence of the restaurant like a blade wrapped in ice. Tony. Blankets. Now. Then to Theo, his second lieutenant, whose phone was already in his hand, call Dr. Reeves. Tell him it's me. Tell him to come immediately. Lena flinched at the authority in his voice. She took a step backward, her survival instinct screaming that she had made a terrible mistake. I'm sorry, I didn't know, we just needed warm. Dante Moretti moved toward her, and every muscle in her body prepared to run. But he did something that made her hesitate. He knelt. Not stood over her. Knelt. His expensive Italian shoes touched the floor of his restaurant, and he lowered himself to her eye level. You are safe here, he said, and his voice had transformed into something entirely different. Something that sounded almost like a prayer. Let me help the child. His hands that had broken men, that had ordered destruction, that had signed death sentences with nothing but a phone call, moved toward Emma with infinite, careful gentleness. He wrapped the child in his own coat, a cashmere thing worth more than Lena's entire life, and the moment Emma's fever-bright skin touched the warmth, the child whispered something that would haunt Dante Moretti for the rest of his existence. Are you an angel? His face did something complex. Something that shifted and reformed and nearly broke. No, pick cola. Just a man who knows what cold feels like. Tony arrived with blankets and laid them across the leather booth in the back room of the restaurant. Dr. Reeves, summoned from his bed at 3 in the morning by a call from the only man in Boston he truly feared, arrived in 12 minutes. He treated Emma for acute hypothermia, his practiced hands checking her vitals, his voice clinical and steady even as he muttered about how close they had come to losing her. Lena never left Emma's side. She sat on the edge of the leather sofa, her hand on her daughter's arm, whispering prayers in Portuguese that her own mother had taught her 43 years ago. She did not notice Dante standing in the doorway, watching the way she loved. She did not notice how he could not look away. When Dr. Reeves stepped out, he found Tony standing in the restaurant's main room, arms crossed, utterly stunned. "Boss, who is she?" Tony asked, and his voice carried a question that went deeper than names or backgrounds. Dante did not answer. He was still watching Lena through the open doorway, still seeing his daughter's face in the shadows of the room. Still hearing that small voice ask if he was an angel. The dawn came slowly, painting the restaurant in shades of gold and honey. Emma slept peacefully, wrapped in blankets that cost more than the entire deposit on Lena's medical procedure. Lena sat across from Dante at his corner table, her hands wrapped around a cup of espresso that steamed in the morning light. Neither of them had moved in hours. "Tell me what happened," Dante said. It was not a request. Lena's instinct was to lie. It was the habit of 8 years, the habit of survival. But something in his steady gaze, something in the way he had knelt for her child, made her speak truth instead. She told him about Cordelia. About the converted closet. About 3 years of 12-hour days and withheld wages. She told him about the letter from the hospital, the surgical procedure Emma needed, the timeline that was collapsing like a structure built on sand. Then she said the number. The number that had become the geography of her desperation. $85,000, Lena whispered. 12 days. That's what Emma needs. And I have $200. She pulled a crumpled envelope from her pocket, and her hand shook so badly she could barely hold it. This is all I have left. $200 after 3 years. Dante's jaw tightened. It was the only visible reaction, but it was enough. And before Cordelia? His voice was quiet, which made it infinitely more dangerous. Lena's hand trembled on her cup. This was the wall. The thing she had built to survive. But she was so tired of standing behind it. "Derek," she whispered. 8 years. He was a restaurant manager. He said he could help me. He said no one else would hire me. She paused, and when she continued, her voice had become something fractured. He was right. He was right about that. Dante leaned forward, but he did not touch her. "Did he hurt you?" The question was asked so gently that it nearly broke her. Lena nodded. She could not speak. She simply nodded, and that was enough. Tony and Theo watched from near the bar, their faces reflecting something they had never felt before, at the sight of their boss showing concern. Not fear. Not respect. Concern. For a woman they did not know. In 15 years, Tony whispered to Theo, "I have never seen him like this." When Dr. Reeves returned in the afternoon to check on Emma, he brought news that made Lena's breath catch. The fever was breaking. The hypothermia was responding to treatment. Another hour outside in that cold, Dr. Reeves said carefully, and we would have lost her. Dante left the room. Tony followed him into the kitchen, where Dante's hands gripped the marble counter so hard the stone cracked. When he spoke, his voice was winter itself. "I want everything. Every transaction Derek Collins ever made. Every connection Cordelia Blackwood has. Bank records. Phone logs. Meeting schedules. Everything." "Boss, what are you going to do?" Tony asked. "What I should have done 8 years ago," Dante replied. "Make sure men like him understand that the world is not theirs to take." That evening, as Lena settled into the apartment above the restaurant, Dante's private space, where no one had ever slept except him, she heard his voice on the phone in the study downstairs. Cold as February. Sharp as a surgical blade. "I need everything by tomorrow." And Tony, make sure the FBI knows what you find. They've been looking for a reason to move on Derek Collins. We're going to give them one. What Lena did not know was that Derek Collins and Cordelia Blackwood's partnership had roots that ran far deeper than stolen wages and exploitation. What she did not know was that the FBI had been watching them both for months, waiting for the final piece of evidence. What she did not know was that by letting her daughter into his restaurant, Dante Moretti had set in motion events that would destroy both of them, but not in the way anyone expected. As she lay beside Emma's sleeping form in that unfamiliar bed, Lena Santos made a decision. She would let him help. Not because she believed in miracles anymore, but because in a frozen Boston night, when she and her daughter were running out of time, a stranger had knelt beside them and offered the only thing left in the world that still mattered. Warmth. Safety. And the radical, dangerous possibility that she was not nobody at all. The noon light fell harsh and white through the restaurant windows. Lena stood behind the bar, her hands gripping the edge so hard her knuckles turned white. She had known this moment was coming. Some part of her had always known. The door opened. Derek Collins walked in first, his restaurant manager's uniform pressed sharp, his smile the smile of a man who had never lost a negotiation in his life. Behind him came Cordelia Blackwood, her cashmere coat draped over shoulders that had never known a day's real work, a jewelry catching light like a predator's eyes. They moved toward Lena with the confidence of people who owned the space they inhabited. The other diners pretended not to notice. The kitchen went quiet. "Miss Santos," Cordelia said, her voice smooth as poison poured into crystal. "We have come to settle this matter once and for all." Dante sat at his corner table, his lieutenants Tony and Theo flanking him like silent stones. His wine glass had not moved in 7 minutes. His eyes tracked every movement. Derek's hand landed on the bar beside Lena's. "I've brought my lawyer. He is waiting outside with the paperwork. You stole $5,000 from my restaurant 8 years ago. We have documentation. We have witnesses. None of it was true. Every cent of those wages had been stolen from her. Every dollar she had earned and never received. And," Cordelia continued, stepping closer, "I have filed a custody claim. The state will remove Emma from your care within hours. She will be placed in foster care, where she belongs. Unless, of course, you sign." Cordelia produced a document from her coat pocket. "Resign any claim to Emma. Admit you are unfit. Return to your position as my household staff at minimum wage. And we will forget this happened." Lena's vision swam. The two people who had destroyed her life stood before her smiling. They had coordinated. They had planned this together. The partnership between her abuser and her exploiter was complete. Or, Derek said, leaning in close enough that she could smell the cologne masking 8 years of cruelty, "You will be in a cell by tonight. And Emma goes into the system. Foster care. Maybe adoption by a family who will actually appreciate her. Maybe worse. Who knows where a child like that ends up?" Cordelia's laugh was a blade wrapped in ice. "You have nothing, Lena. You are nothing. No education, no family, no resources. No one will believe you over us. No one ever does." The restaurant was so quiet you could hear the rain beginning outside. A single drop. Then another. Then a storm. Lena's hand shook. 8 years of control, of silence, of swallowing her own voice. It wanted to stay there, comfortable in her throat, safe in her chest. But then she moved. Her hand went to her coat pocket. When it emerged, she held something so small it was almost invisible. A piece of paper, yellowed, torn at the edges, creased so many times it was nearly falling apart. A college acceptance letter. Boston University. Early admissions. Dated 8 years ago. "This," Lena said, and her voice was steady now, solid like earth after an earthquake. "This is what you took from me, Cordelia. You found this when Derek sent me to you. You both decided that I did not deserve an education. That I did not deserve a future. That I was the kind of person who deserved to be owned. Cordelia's smile froze. Derek's face darkened like a thundercloud. I was 22 years old when I walked into your house, Lena continued, speaking to Cordelia but looking at Derek. I had earned admission to one of the best universities in this country. Do you know how rare that is? Do you know what it means when a girl from nothing, from no one, pulls herself up enough to be accepted into a place like that? You little, Derek lunged across the bar. He did not reach her. Dante moved like lightning striking water. His hand caught Derek's wrist mid-air, and the grip was absolute, crushing, a vice of bone and will. Derek's arm froze. His face went white. You are in my restaurant, Dante said, his voice like the settling of a tomb. You are standing before a woman who works here, who is under my protection. If you touch her again, you do not leave this place. The room shifted. Where there had been emptiness, there was suddenly presence. 12 men in black suits materialized from the shadows, from the kitchen, from the storage room, from the tables where they had been sitting unnoticed. They moved without sound, without urgency, and took positions that made the restaurant a cage. Derek's arm was released. He stumbled backward, rubbing his wrist, his confidence shattered like glass. Cordelia's face had gone the color of old marble. This is not over, she said, but her voice had lost its edge. We have lawyers. We have? You have nothing, Dante interrupted, and he stood now, and when he stood the room compressed. I suggest you both leave now. While you still can. They left. Cordelia first, her heels clicking too loudly on the tile, too fast. Derek following, looking back at Lena with eyes full of promises about what would come next. But as the door closed behind them, as the rain intensified outside, Lena felt something crack open inside her chest. Relief should have flooded in. Instead, there was only a terrible, hollow fear. They would not give up. They would escalate. And when people like Derek Collins and Cordelia Blackwood were cornered, they fought with everything they had. That evening, as darkness fell on Boston like a cape, Lena stood on the bridge over the Charles River. The water below was black. Absolutely black. The kind of black that swallows everything. Freezing rain soaked through her coat. It ran down her face and she could not tell if it was tears or storm. Her hands gripped the railing, cold metal, so cold it burned. The city lights blurred into halos of gold and red and white, beautiful and terrible and utterly indifferent to whether she lived or died. 8 years, she thought. 8 years and I am still here. Still fighting. Still losing. Tomorrow they would move against her. The lawsuit would come. The custody claim would move forward. Emma would be taken. Lena would be arrested for crimes she did not commit. The system would swallow her whole because the system always protected people like Derek and Cordelia. The system was built by people like them. Her fingers loosened on the railing. The water looked almost peaceful. Almost like rest. Like the first time in 8 years she would not have to wake at 5 in the morning. Would not have to count dollars. Would not have to be afraid. Her phone buzzed. A text from Emma's school. Emma drew you a picture today. It is very beautiful. She told everyone you are her hero. She says you saved her life. One sentence. One tiny thing that costs nothing to write. Lena's hands tightened on the railing. She saw Emma's face, not Cordelia's composed cruelty, not Derek's predatory smile. Emma, age 6, with her mother's eyes, with her fierce small courage, who had saved a torn piece of paper from 8 years ago because she believed in a future her mother had stopped believing in. Emma, who needed her. Lena backed away from the railing. She backed away slowly, her entire body shaking. The rain fell on her face and she welcomed it, because it meant she was still alive to feel it. She called Dante. I need help, she said. Please. His voice came back steady and absolute. You have it. Dawn broke like a wound across the Boston sky. 6 o'clock in the morning, and the city was not yet awake. 12 men in black moved like ghosts. They coordinated with federal agents who had been building their case for 2 years. 2 years of surveillance, of watching Derek Collins's restaurant become a front for something darker, a pipeline for vulnerable people like Lena, brought in desperate and trapped, exploited and sometimes sold to others willing to pay for compliance. The federal agents had been waiting for the final piece. Dante gave it to them. Every financial record. Every transaction between Derek and Cordelia. Every connection, every meeting, every threat. Everything. Derek's apartment door came off its hinges at 6:17 a.m. He stumbled out of bed in boxer shorts and confusion, his handsome face creasing in outrage. "What the?" Derek Collins, the lead agent said, her voice cutting through his protests like a blade through silk. "You are under arrest for human trafficking, racketeering, conspiracy to commit fraud, and conspiracy against the rights of citizens." She read him his rights while his hands were cuffed behind his back. While cameras flashed outside his window. While every news channel in Boston began their morning broadcast with his face. Derek collapsed to his knees. "Wait, I can explain. I can give you names, I can help you. The other people involved, I can." No one listened. At the same moment, across the city, federal agents surrounded Cordelia Blackwood's brownstone. She came down the stairs in a silk robe, her grey hair perfect despite the hour, her face the serene mask of a woman who had always believed herself untouchable. "There has been some mistake," she said. "I have a lawyer." "I have?" Cordelia Blackwood, the agent interrupted, producing a warrant. "You are under arrest for embezzlement, tax evasion, money laundering, and theft of a minor's trust fund. Emma's trust fund. $2 million, meant for the child's care and education and future. Stolen over 5 years, hidden in offshore accounts, used to fund Cordelia's collection of art and jewelry and power." The photographs went viral within an hour. By noon, 4 million people had seen Derek Collins in handcuffs. By evening, 6 million. Cordelia Blackwood's arrest trended on every social platform. Her name appeared in every newspaper. Her face, that perfect untouchable face, was suddenly the symbol of every predator who believed themselves above consequence. 3 months later, in a federal courtroom with rain hammering the windows, Derek Collins stood before a judge. 40 years, the judge said, and her voice was thunder. 40 years in federal prison for human trafficking 17 vulnerable people, for racketeering, for conspiracy. Your systematic exploitation of people who had no power to resist you represents the worst that humanity has to offer. You showed them no mercy. This court shows you none." Derek wept. He begged. He called out to a God he had never believed in and a mother he had abandoned. Marshals led him away in chains. Lena sat in the gallery with Dante beside her. She watched the man who had stolen 8 years of her life disappear through a door he would not pass through again for 40 years. She felt nothing but relief. A profound, clean, absolute relief. The following week, Cordelia Blackwood stood in the same courtroom. 25 years, the judge pronounced, for embezzlement, fraud, child endangerment, and theft. You will repay the $2 million to the trust of Emma Santos, plus damages totaling an additional $1 million. Your assets are seized. Your accounts are frozen. Cordelia's socialite friends had already abandoned her. The brownstone was seized. Her name, once whispered in drawing rooms with envy, was now whispered with revulsion. As she was led out in handcuffs, she saw Lena in the gallery. Lena, who was standing now. Lena, who held Emma's small hand in hers. Lena, who met Cordelia's eyes without flinching, without fear, without the apology that Cordelia had demanded for 8 years. For the first time in her life, Cordelia Blackwood understood what it meant to be nothing. The rain continued outside, steady and clean and new. 3 months after the courtroom rain stopped falling, Lena Santos stood in the center of a small apartment in Boston's North End. Sunlight streamed through windows that belonged to her. Not borrowed. Not locked. Hers. The apartment was simple. A living room with a couch that did not smell like mildew. A kitchen with a refrigerator that held food she had chosen. A bedroom for Emma with walls painted the color of dawn. And a second bedroom, smaller, that was hers alone. She had never had a room of her own. Emma ran through the hallway, her footsteps light and quick, no longer the careful, silent steps of a child learning not to take up space. "Mommy, can we put the pictures on the walls?" Lena turned to face her daughter. Emma held a folder of drawings, bright colors, stick figures holding hands, a yellow house with a smoking chimney. Pictures of dreams drawn by a child who was learning to dream again. "Yes, baby. We can put them everywhere." They hung the drawings with tape that Lena had bought herself, with money that was hers to spend. Each picture went up slowly, carefully, Emma standing on a chair while Lena held her steady. The stick figures multiplied across the walls. A family. Growing larger. Getting fuller. That night, Lena stood alone in her bedroom and touched the wall. Just the flat surface of drywall painted cream. She pressed her palm against it and felt the solidity of ownership. The wall did not flinch. It did not judge. It simply existed, and so did she, in a space that was hers. She cried then. Not the silent tears of someone hiding pain. Real tears. The kind that came from relief so profound it shattered something inside her and rebuilt it clean. The next morning, Dante arrived with a single piece of paper in his hand. His expression was unreadable, but there was something in his eyes, a carefully hidden hope, like a man carrying a fragile thing he was afraid to drop. "I found something," he said. "I made some calls. Found the university that sent you the letter." Lena's entire body went still. The letter. The one Derek had ripped to pieces. The one Emma had saved, keeping the fragments hidden in a shoe for 3 years. "They want to meet with you." The admissions office was on the 4th floor of a modern building near Beacon Hill. Lena sat across from a woman named Dr. Patricia Chen, whose face held the particular sadness of someone who had read the details of what happened to her. The folder on the desk between them was thick. Lena's file. Her case. Her documented suffering. "Ms. Santos," Dr. Chen said, "we received your original application 8 years ago. Your entrance essays were extraordinary. Your test scores qualified you for our honors program. And then your file went dormant. We learned why." Lena could not speak. Her throat had closed. What was done to you was unconscionable. It was a crime against you as a person and as a student. We reviewed your case file. We reviewed what you have done in the 3 months since your abusers were imprisoned. You earned your GED while working full-time. You began volunteer work with trafficking survivors. You are studying for college entrance exams again. Dr. Chen leaned forward. "We would like to offer you admission for the spring semester. Full scholarship. Room and board covered. And I personally want you to know that this university will stand behind you. You will not be invisible here." Dante sat beside Lena, his hand resting gently on the table near hers. He did not touch her. He never forced touch. But he was present. Solid. There. Lena looked at the acceptance letter, a new one, printed fresh, bearing her name, and she could not speak. Dr. Chen smiled. "Take some time. The offer stands." In the hallway, Dante pulled her into an alcove away from the flow of students. Lena pressed her face against his chest, and his arms came around her, holding her the way a person holds something precious and fragile. "You are going back to school," he said. It was not a question. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes." The adoption hearing took place on a Tuesday in April. The courthouse was morning bright, and Emma wore a dress that Lena had bought her, pale blue with white buttons. Lena's hands trembled as she held Emma's hand walking up the marble steps. The judge reviewed the paperwork. Cordelia's parental rights had been terminated months ago. The trust fund that Cordelia had stolen from, $2 million, was being restored to Emma's name. Lena was petitioning to formally adopt the child who had always been hers in every way that mattered. This court finds that adoption is in the best interest of the child, the judge said. Ms. Santos, you are now the legal mother of Emma Santos. Emma did not fully understand the legal architecture of what had just happened, but she understood the essential fact. She turned to face Lena with the clarity of a 4-year-old asking the question that contained everything. You mean you will be my real mom? Lena knelt down until they were at eye level. I always was, baby. Now it is just official. Now everyone knows it. Emma's arms wrapped around her neck, and Lena held her daughter, legally, finally, forever, and she wept in a courthouse hallway while strangers passed by, unable to look away from the sight of a woman finally claiming something that was already hers. Emma pulled back just enough to ask, and Mr. Dante will visit us. Across the hallway, Dante stood with Tony and Theo. He was watching them. There was something in his expression, a tenderness so complete it looked like prayer. He met Lena's eyes, and something unspoken passed between them. Not a promise. Something deeper. Recognition. The knowledge that they had saved each other. That evening, the corner table at Moretti's restaurant was set for 2. Emma slept in the back room on a cushioned bench, her small form curled under a blanket that Dante kept there specifically for her. The restaurant was closed to customers. Just Lena and Dante, candlelight, and the weight of everything they had survived together. You saved me, Dante said. His voice was quiet, steady like stone. That night you walked through my door with a child in your arms. You saved me, Lena replied. No. He reached across the table, and this time he took her hand fully. I was drowning for 20 years. Drowning in grief so deep I thought I would never surface. My daughter, Isabella, I could not save her. She died before she was even born, and I have carried that weight every single day since. But I could save you and Emma. You gave me purpose again. You gave me a reason to be more than just a man who runs an empire. You showed me what it means to save someone who is still here, still fighting. Lena turned her hand over so their palms were touching. You gave me my life back. You saw me when I was invisible. You believed me. You protected Emma. You destroyed the people who were destroying us. We saved each other, Dante said. On the worst nights of our lives, we chose to save instead of destroy. The rain began outside, gentle and clean against the windows. Lena looked around the restaurant, at the table where Dante had sat alone for 15 years, nursing wine and ghosts. Now it was filled with warmth. With presence. With the weight of 2 people who had chosen each other. Over the following months, Lena began working part-time at the restaurant. Not as invisible staff, but as family. She took orders, managed the kitchen, and somewhere between the dinner rush and closing time, she opened her textbooks and studied for her college classes. Tony and Theo treated her like a sister. They protected Emma like an aunt and uncle who would move mountains for her. The restaurant transformed. Where there had been silence and expensive wine, there was now laughter. Emma would draw at a corner table while Lena studied, and Dante would watch them both with an expression that made his men understand, finally, what it meant for their boss to be alive. One Sunday evening, the table was full. Lena's college friend sat beside Tony and Theo. Emma colored between courses. Dante carved roasted chicken. The candlelight caught in glasses of wine and in Emma's hair as she looked up at Lena with absolute certainty and asked a question that contained 1,000 previous nights of abandonment. You will not leave. Lena set down her fork and took Emma's small hand. Never. Not ever. You are my daughter. This is our home. Emma nodded, satisfied, and returned to her drawing. The table continued. The warmth continued. And Lena looked at Dante across the candles and recognized, fully, that she had been saved. That she had saved him. That they had become each other's sanctuary. 1 year later, spring arrived again. Lena stood at the edge of the university quad in a cap and gown, her diploma in hand, honors distinction printed across it in bold letters. Emma held one hand. Dante waited at the end of the path with Tony and Theo, all 3 men in dark suits, all three of them proud in the way that men protect what is precious to them. She had graduated with honors. The acceptance letter that Derek had torn into pieces, that Emma had saved, that Cordelia had tried to steal, it had become real. It had become this, a degree, a future, a woman who had been invisible standing in the sun while the world finally saw her. That night, at Moretti's restaurant, the corner table was transformed. White flowers bloomed from crystal vases. Champagne waited in ice. The same table where Lena had walked in carrying a frozen child and found salvation had become a celebration of survival. Lena stood to make a toast. Her voice was clear and strong, the voice of a woman who had learned to take up space. 1 year ago, I was invisible, she said. I was nobody. I had $200 to my name and no hope. 2 people tried to destroy me completely. But I survived. And I learned something essential: we are never as alone as we think. Even in the darkest cold, even at 3 in the morning when you think no one sees you, someone does. And sometimes that someone changes everything. She looked directly at Dante. You saw me when I was invisible. You believed me when no one else would. You saved Emma and me. But we saved you too. We brought you back from the dead. Dante rose, his eyes bright with tears he did not try to hide. His men watched, the first time in 15 years they had ever seen their boss cry. To the woman who walked through my door carrying a child, he said, and brought back my soul. The glasses rose. The voices joined together. Emma clapped her hands, delighted by the noise and the light and the love that filled the room like air. This is the story of what happens when 2 broken people choose to save each other instead of drowning alone. It is about the invisible people, the nannies, the servers, the exploited and forgotten, who carry more strength than their abusers ever imagined. It is about how sometimes the most dangerous man in a city can become the safest place to fall. Derek Collins sits in a federal prison in Pennsylvania with 37 years remaining on his sentence. His trafficking operation is dismantled. His victims are healing. Cordelia Blackwood sits in a federal prison with 20 years remaining. Her wealth is gone. Her name is ashes. Her daughter speaks to her only through a lawyer. Emma Santos thrives. Officially adopted. Trust fund secured. A child who learned that love is not something to earn, it is something to receive. And Lena Santos, no longer invisible, no longer nobody, stands on the restaurant balcony at sunset with the man she loves. Emma sleeps inside, warm and safe. The city stretches before them, lights beginning to glow as darkness approaches. But this darkness is different. This darkness holds light inside it. I never thought I would have this, Lena says. Any of this. Dante pulls her close. You earned every moment. We both did. They stand together, 2 people who found each other in darkness and chose to save rather than destroy. The camera pulls back, the restaurant glowing below, filled with warmth and family and life. The city lights multiply across the night sky, proof that even the coldest nights can end in home. After the rain, the sky clears. And sometimes miracles come from the most unexpected places. If this story moved you, drop a like and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe so you never miss a story about love, survival, and second chances. And remember, you are never as invisible as you think. Someone sees you. Someone believes in you. And sometimes, that someone will change your life forever. Thank you for staying with us until the very end. We wish you good health, joy, and days filled with peace. Goodbye, and we will see you again in the next video.